Welcome to AeroCast, a podcast designed to bridge the gap between inspiring engineers and seasoned professionals. Today, I'm joined by
Miguel.
Tell me a bit more about yourself, Miguel. What do you do? All that sort of stuff.
So my name's Miguel. I'm a service recovery manager at Heathrow Airport, but most of my time is spent on social media and also at schools, universities, colleges, mentoring and inspiring other people to join the aviation industry.
So first of all, how are you? How's your day been?
Well, I'm great. This is. Thank you for the invite.
No, of course. I want to thank your time, kindly taking time out your very important day, very important week.
It's Saturday.
So how's your week been? Was this the last week before you got any holiday of Christmas?
So last week actually I was in Italy. I was on annual leave, but the Monday and Tuesday before that was extremely busy, getting everything ready for Christmas. We have a lot of processes and a lot of contingencies that we have to prepare. It's a lot. It's a lot for the thousands and thousands of passengers that are coming through, all the 4 different terminals, working with around 6-7 departments. Yeah. It's a lot of work, but we're ready for the next week.
Ready for him. So a bit of background about Miguel here is he started off as he didn't start off, but in November of 2022, he was an identity management officer up until May 2023, where he turned into a service recovery program support. And then in October 2023, he moved up to service recovery manager. We'll get to the story about how he became that role. But for a bit of context, I met Miguel at the Flight Global Airlines 2024 event. A lot of you might have seen that on my Instagram. I met him through Motor here, the airport guy. We'll have him soon on here as well. But I met him through there and we met at an event and this great guy got talking and I introduced this thing to him and he was more than reluctant to do it and now here we are. So how's Heathrow like during Christmas season?
During Christmas season?
Christmas season.
It's crazy. It's a lot of people love it because you can't get more Christmassy than an airport. It's Christmas trees everywhere. Every terminal, everywhere, train stations, everywhere, staff break rooms, Christmas trees. It's very festive. I think recently we had some carolers that came in that did some performances. We had primary schools come in to do performances as well. So it's extremely festive. I remember last year we had someone in a huge polar bear suit strutting around the terminal. A full polar bear, white polar bear suit.
Just for Christmas.
Just for Christmas. And I know we do a lot of initiatives such as some of the things that I work on is these colouring in books for the winter period, for the summer period. So we give out stuff like that. There's all sorts going on for Christmas time.
So describe a typical day of you in Heathrow.
For me, I would say a typical day is I go to work, really, really happy, really excited. Not typically, but most of the times there's an operation that's going on. We need to try and plan as much as we can. So most of the times what I'm doing is looking at how we've been performing, either in the last week, in the last month, we were planning ahead. Okay, Christmas coming up, or it's going to be the Easter holiday, and it's all about planning. We're always many steps ahead. I'll give you an example. One of our senior leaders always has a countdown. It's 100 and something days till summer. And it's not even Christmas yet. But at an airport, everything is planning. So most of my day, I'm looking ahead. I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking, okay, how can I get this sorted? How can I get this finished? Who do I need to talk to? How can I start this? Those sort of other things that are going through my head. We have the occasional meetings as well. Again, with the stakeholders that I need to try and motivate, try and encourage, get them involved. And most of the time, I'm out and about in the terminals, and that's my favorite part of my job, honestly. So I look after an app at Heathrow that helps deal with complaints and try and improve the complaint process overall, and is used by all of the operational managers and colleagues. So a big part of my job is spending time with them, making sure it's working, making sure they have everything they need, and just really, being in the operation and encouraging them of this great tool that we have, and just spending time with them, because when you work at an airport, it's important to, understand what I'm trying to achieve, be in the operation and be like, oh, okay, that doesn't work, this works, that doesn't work, and hear the feedback from them, because they're the ones that are using it at the end of the day. So, yeah.
So you planning, so would you say It's Christmas. It's not even winter hasn't finished yet, but you're still planning for summer 2025.
Yeah.
Really?
I kid you not.
I guess if you're Europe's largest airport, you gotta keep well planned ahead.
Very much.
So you have a very, very, like, your whole career in industry, your whole educational career as well has been in aviation. Would you agree with me there?
I would agree, yeah.
What inspired you to pursue a career in the aviation industry? Sorry.
Aviation industry. For me, so when I was around 17, 18, I didn't really have much knowledge on what to do in terms of a career, in terms of pursuing something. So I remember I was just looking around, and I always enjoyed planes. I always enjoyed flying. I always thought it was something that for me would be great to do and pursue, but I didn't understand. I didn't know how that looked like, essentially. And I remember one of my teachers told me that, Miguel, there's work experience at British Airways, and I applied, didn't really think much of it, but it was probably the best thing I ever did, because I remember I spent a week there at Waterside, and I remember coming back to my sixth form college, deleted all of my UCAS applications, which at the time was for, I think, accounting, which I'm glad I didn't do that, accounting. And then I started researching about airline and airport related degrees. I had a look, and eventually I applied to the University of West London, where I studied airline airport management, and that is where I really understood about the scope that I could do in the industry. And when I went into the industry as my first job, I was just blown away by just how much there is to do there. So I'm really glad that I took that first step and did that work experience, even though I was a bit hesitant, but it's essentially changed my life.
100%.
Here I am now.
Coming on to our next question, what skills or quantities do you think is required for someone to be in the aviation industry?
In the aviation industry, I would say the most important skill is not necessarily skill, but the thing that you need to be most aware of is safety. It's an understanding of safety and an understanding of how dangerous it can be. And when you do go for your job applications, for your interviews, no matter what the job is, you need to understand that safety is everyone's responsibility. No matter what job you're doing or in what department you work in, when you go into these interviews, when you submit those job applications, you need to show that you are everything about safety, no matter what the job is. So I think to demonstrate that, a good skill is attention to detail, and that you can demonstrate that, for example, if you're a student, you know, you have all of these different deadlines, all of these different courses.
Yeah.
You need to have strong attention to detail and time management to keep on top of that. And I would say time management is another one, because in an airport, for an airline, everything is go. Everything's tight schedules, quick turnarounds. So definitely time management is one that is also very important. So I'll say those two.
So just that ability of being responsible because companies, airlines, Heathrow, their number one priority is safety. So I guess being that responsible is one thing that applicants need to have when applying to aviation jobs.
Completely.
So what are some of the unique challenges you face in your role at Heathrow?
Unique challenges?
Not even unique, just challenges.
I'll give you the biggest challenge that I've had, and it was pretty unique. It was pretty unique, to be fair. So it was this year around July time, summer peak, and there was something that happened in T2, it's on the news now, and eventually the terminal had to be evacuated. And I remember I came in that day, I had a training course, and I was on the bus on the way to the training course, and I got the call of, this is happening. Got off the bus, I was like, sorry, I can't do this training course anymore. Made my way all the way back to T2, and when I got there, it was chaos. It was like nothing I've ever seen before. Absolute chaos. I'm talking queues that went from Terminal 2 security all the way out, around the terminal, then around the terminal again, then downstairs, then around the terminal. It was a challenge. It was immense. And essentially our responsibility was, number one, safety. And number two, how can we get all of these people through as quickly as we can? We had a huge challenge where we had to close essentially the terminal for about an hour, 2 hours. and that created a massive backlog. And I've never seen anything like it. Like people that are, because for myself, technically I'm an office worker, but you see all of these people, they just whack on a purple t-shirt and they just go there, and it's all hands on deck, and then there's me, and then there's all these other people, and it's like, it was the best feeling. It was the best feeling. Honestly, it was like, you know, you really, it's as someone that dreams and really likes the industry, it was something I was like, wow, this is crazy, this is insane. I'm like, yes, this is very like a challenging situation, but the way we dealt with it was incredible. And we made sure, like, as soon as it opened, you know, we had the boards out, we're like, okay, this flight, and we had to organize, we had to talk to the airlines, you know, just wait up for a little bit because of this, and then we had to find all the passengers and we had to get them through. It was a huge effort, and one that we recovered really, really well. I was not only proud of that, but also it was just like, I don't know, it's just that adrenaline. And some people, I remember one of my colleagues that he used to work in check-in, and he said he used to feel that adrenaline every single day. It's like, there's a huge, like 200, 300 people, and you go check them all in, bam, 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 and there's all these challenges, and I finally got to experience that. And I was alongside him, and he told me, this is what I was talking about. This is the thrill, the adrenaline that I get when I used to do check-in. And I get it. I completely understand it. It was an amazing feeling. And eventually, after a couple of hours, managed to just clear everyone through, and the airport, the terminal looked like nothing ever happened. And it's like, wow, crazy feeling.
That's absolutely. So, like, what was the feeling afterwards when everything was cleared, man?
Well, I was tired.
Yeah,
I haven't eaten. We've probably cleared up. I don't eat breakfast, and we probably cleared up the whole queue by 4 o'clock ish.
Because I'm assuming, like, during the whole thing, there was a lot of adrenaline. So after the adrenaline's coming down, and then that overwhelming feelings kicking in and everything.
No, I remember. So obviously I was like, it finished, and we're like, okay, cool, we can breathe now. Yeah. And we went airside, we went to the canteen, and I was sat with my colleague, and we were both sat there. And I get what you're trying to say, like, oh, it's kind of like, it's done now. But I remember I was sat there, and I was having this conversation with him. I was like, whoa, what just happened? That was so cool. We managed to do this. We managed to move all these people. We managed to do that. It was like, it was us just sat down, because he's like really into aviation as well. Yeah. He studied the same degree as I did. He used to do check-in. He knows that feeling. And as office workers, we don't really get that feeling. We're both sat there like, oh my days, remember when this happened? Remember when that happened? Remember how we managed to save that one person's holiday, and this person had this complaint, and this family had to travel because of this, and then we managed to get them through, and they managed to get their flight. It was just a lot of reflecting, and I guess we kind of like sustained that adrenaline a little bit. Yeah. But even the next day, I think the best thing about my job is that it's a balance. Because if it was like that every day, I'll be very tired. I'll be very tired. But it's nice to like experience it, see it, feel it. It's like, wow. And it really helps you appreciate the work that, you know, all the check-in agent staff, all the security officers do, because they experience that, not to that level, but to some extent every day. And it's like, honestly, crazy.
You mentioned T2. What are some airlines in T2?
T2?
Yeah.
Avianca. Because when I go to Colombia, when I go back home, I go for T2. You got Avianca, you got... It's a good question.
But overall...
I know, so it's a partnership of airlines. Yeah. And I forget the name of that partnership. Was it?
Skyworld.
That's the name of the partnership.
Yeah. So the reason I asked this was because of the high demand of T2. At the airlines event, the CEO of Virgin was talking, and he mentioned how like T3 isn't really ideal for him, and T2 would be the ideal place. So I guess I'm just trying to get at the point that to clear T2 is such a massive terminal with some massive airlines that it's such high demand that Virgin Atlantic want to be in that terminal. So it's pretty amazing what you guys did when clearing that whole thing up, bro.
T2 is our newest terminal. It was built in 2014, 15, around that time. You know, brand new. It looks amazing. One thing that always sticks out to me about T2 is the smell. It smells really fresh. I can't explain why or describe why, but it just smells. I
think airports just have fresh. That smell. You know, that specific airport
but T2,
smell.
Trust me, next time you go to T2, different smell.
Different smell. Will be there. My next question, I've literally just thought of it on the spot.
Go on.
What's up with T1, man? What are they doing with T1 that you're allowed to talk about? That you're allowed to say?
So T1's still there. In terms of what we want to do with it, I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
But I know it's used for example, like testing, because it's quite a massive, extensive terminal.
Yeah.
We can do all sorts of testing there. We can throw equipment in there. We can try all sorts of things. So it's still used. People can still enter, or staff can still enter and play around with what we had there. But in terms of how we want to build it in the future, again, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure.
Have you been like near the Concorde?
I have a picture of me next to it.
That's really cool.
And I've been to T1 as well. I got to go not that long ago, and they just kind of play around with stuff. There's like backup stuff in there, basically, just in
Makes
case.
sense. If you had unlimited resources, let's imagine you've walked out the door and someone said, Miguel, you are the new CEO of Heathrow.
Okay.
What would be the things that you would do, implement
things I would
Heathrow?
do.
Yeah.
I think it would be really cool to see if I've had unlimited money and I can do absolutely anything. I would love to see. So, for example, this CTA, so the central terminal area, is like, T1, which is just the T2 and T3. I would love if they make like a massive, just a huge terminal, and they just combine them all together, and then they link it. It's like a nice little round circle, and we use a classic hub and spoke model. I think that'd be really cool. Really cool, and hopefully help with like some of the capacity stuff we have. Yeah. But I don't know how long that'll take to build. Yeah. How much money? If I have infinite money, but I don't know how much money that would cost. That would cost a lot.
100%. So you mentioned at the start that you went on holiday. Tell me about Miguel outside of Heathrow. What are some of your hobbies? What do you get up to? All this sort of stuff, man.
That's a good question. Outside of Heathrow.
Forget Heathrow. Like you're on holiday.
I'm on holiday.
You've been told not to think about Heathrow at all.
Okay. Outside of like work and all that stuff.
100%.
I don't really like going on holiday that much, to be honest. Ironically, I work at an airport. I don't really like flying.
Yeah.
Too claustrophobic.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not a fan. Yeah. But I watch a lot of football, so I support Man United, unfortunately. But I enjoy watching football. So when I went to Italy, the only reason I wanted to go to Italy was I wanted to go to Milan. The only reason I wanted to go to Milan was because I wanted to go to the San Siro. Because how could you not want to go to the 100%. San Siro? And then I went to Turin. Why did I go to Turin? Because I wanted to go watch Juventus. Of course, why else would you go? So I do that a lot. I've been to like a lot of random games. Been to a lot of random stadiums, up and down the country. I've been to the Etihad, Old Trafford, Craven Cottage. I've been to all these random. Where if I can go to a game, I will go. It's just
the atmosphere.
It's just the atmosphere. It's just a different feeling. It's a different feeling. So I enjoy doing that a lot. What else do I enjoy doing? I enjoy. Good question. Sometimes I play football. Very rarely nowadays, but I used to be a goalkeeper, despite being quite short. 7-a-side pitch, I'm decent. 11-a-side pitch, don't call me up. Don't call me up.
No one's going on the 11-a-side pitch, right? We're not professionals out here.
Exactly. 7-a-side. You the keeper, 7-a-side.
You're the guy.
I'm the guy.
100%.
Even with glasses.
Yeah. So with like any like aside like gaming, are you a big gamer?
I used to be. So that's a great thing you mentioned that. Last night, all of my friends came together and we said, you know what, guys? Like the good old days. Remember the good old days? Yeah. And we all got EAFC 25 and we all went on pro clubs.
Oh, mate.
Like the good old days. Oh my days. That we stayed up till like 2 in the morning.
Yeah, honestly, the nostalgia is...
There's just something. And you don't understand, like, after every game, we'll just quote something that we said 5 years ago. Like, remember when this guy like missed this, and we said this about him. It's like, oh man, good times, good times.
There's nothing better than on pro clubs hounding your teammate for missing a good chance, literally screaming at him and all that sort of stuff.
It's the best. It's the best. Like I remember we were just playing, and I was the NE, and I was like, guys, remember when? Do you remember when the biggest problem in our life was if our kits clashed? And it's like now we've got like
now you've got proper airport problems. But back then it was kit clashes.
like when you're in like Division 2, you got one game left to get promoted and your kits clash. It's like,
honestly,
man.
Honestly, like the difference between the challenges that you face, man, when you grow up.
It's crazy.
100%. So, what advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to work in the aviation sector?
That's a good question. If I would say, if you really want to work in the aviation industry, I'll say just start. Because a lot of the people that I mentor, a lot of people that I teach, they get, for example, some that are already in the industry, they get caught up about like the job they're getting into. So for example, some would say like, but what if I don't like that job? What if I don't really like it? I don't really see myself doing this like longer term. I was like, well, you need to like think ahead and think like, okay, this is the first step. You don't know how the second step looks like, but that is the first step. And you'll rather have experience doing something than have no experience. And even if you have an experience already, you'd rather have 2 different experiences
100%.
than just stay with one.
Yeah.
So just keep moving, keep stepping, really, really learn about what the industry is trying to achieve. With the industry, remember, this is something that is for customers. This is essentially travel and tourism, customer-facing business at the bottom line.
Yeah.
And because it is that, you need to remember that these companies, unlike other companies out there, they have like values, but then they really, really home on it because they're passenger-facing, they're customer-facing, and they really value their values, which most often than not have customer service embedded underneath.
Yep.
Even like now, I need to think how what I would do would benefit or affect or change like a customer experience. And I now know how customer experience is because I did that job ages ago where I was customer facing. So even though it's not what you want to do right now, right there and then, it's a start 100%. And it's experience.
100%. So you already answered this question, but can you share another like memorable success story from your role?
Memorable success story?
Yeah, you had the T2 success story that you talked about earlier. Name me another one. Tell me another one.
I think one of the stories that I always remember and I always, in this essence, cherish is kind of to do with work, sort of to do with work. Yeah. So obviously I work at Heathrow, I do the service recovery stuff, it's great. But I spend a lot of my time mentoring, teaching, inspiring, so on and so forth. And I remember when I was working at a train station back in the day, when I did my first job at Heathrow, I met this guy. His name was Ricardo, great guy. I remember he used to always talk about how he loved photography. He really, really cared about photography. I think he had something outside of work, and he was really passionate about it. And you could tell. And he used to always talk to me about it. He used to always tell me about it, how he would really want to do something to do with it. And I was like, great, that's fantastic. I obviously left and did my career. He also, I think he got promoted within there, so he was doing a different job. And eventually, after about a year or so, he came back and he reached out to me via someone else and said, oh, by the way, Heathrow are hiring a content creator role. I was like, that has you written all over it. And I remember he came to me, he had all his notes, he was prepared, and he said to me, like, I really want to ace this interview, and I know you do all this mentoring stuff, and you do all this teaching and so on and so forth about applications and mentoring. I need help for this interview. Like, what can you do? And I was like, mate, no worries. Literally dropped what I was doing. I was like, come here. Spent about a couple of hours prepping, coaching. I remember, because I just remembered how much he wanted it back then. And I was like, no, we have to give this everything. So we sat there, we coached him, we developed him, so on and so forth. There were some things that needed to improve, but overall he was a really strong candidate. And week passed, 2 weeks passed, he reached back out to me and he said, guess what, Miguel? You never guess what. And I was like, what? and he managed to get the job, and he's still doing it right now. And because I'm a bit extroverted and I like doing like promotional campaigns for the company, every time I sign up to do these campaigns, guess who's the cameraman?
Ricardo.
And I always see him. He's always so happy to see him.
Yeah.
I'm always so happy to see him. And when I can just see, like, there's just a different energy about him. When he was working, doing something that, you know, wasn't really what he wanted to do, but now he's doing something he's so passionate about. He can do it outside of work. He can practice it at work, and he's making content internally for like the whole airport. And it's just an amazing feeling to see that he's now able to achieve what he wanted to do all those years ago. And the fact that I was able to play a part, it's crazy. It's a privilege, to be honest.
So what's the most fulfilling part about that in yourself?
The most fulfilling part that I can still remember, like how we used to like talk about it back in the day when applying for a job in content creation at Heathrow wasn't even a thought in anyone's mind, even not even in my mind. And now he's doing it. That's just the best thing. And just seeing him so excited, so happy, so motivated, and you can see that he's very out there character, and you didn't really get to see that before, but now you really get to see it. And it's like, it's just so nice that you get to see, number one, the real side of him, and you see him like succeeding as well. It's just the best feeling.
100%.
Best feeling.
100%. So, as you mentioned, you take up a lot of mentoring roles and all this sort of stuff, and it's on your LinkedIn and it's everywhere. What motivates you to take up all these mentoring roles, and why?
I would say, ever since I was young, I always enjoyed teaching. It was just something about teaching that I kind of found interesting, to be honest. Like in school, okay, not so much in school, but I know definitely in university, I was the person that people would tend to come to when they had questions, and I'd be like, yeah, let's sit down, like this. I used to enjoy that. There's something about giving and helping that I don't know, it just resonates with me. And then I, started my career. Even when I was doing my first job, and I was essentially like it's really entry level job where everyone else there is like always an entry. I was like, if there's anything I can do to help, just let me know. Like, I just want to help. And now that I'm in the position I am now, where I'm in a position where people say, okay, I want to get there, I want to achieve this, as opposed to being with everyone else. I truly think it's my duty to then just offer that up to people and really take the time. I think as a manager, one of the most important things as a manager, and this is what I say at work as well, it's just the number one thing is you have to be there. That's the first thing you have to do. 100%. You have to be there. And if these people have these questions, you don't have to, but for me, I'm like, of course. Like, I want you to develop. I want you to achieve what you wanted to achieve. I want to find out what your goals are and try and figure out how we can get there. And that's where the mentoring, I guess, started from. As it's grown and grown, I've done it a lot more. I've done it to classrooms. I've done it in lectures. I do it on social media now. It's just so enjoyable, in my opinion.
100%. I'll leave a link down to his TikTok and everything like that. He makes some really nice TikToks, and I think it's 100% working. When I went to the Flight Globals event, you were the first person to approach me, and overall, you were there, and the whole event was just so good because you were there and everyone just mentoring us who, for me, I got selected because of the Mo. He had 5 students and he was going to select them, and we entered the competition and all that sort of stuff. So the way you came, approached us, helped us out, answered any questions, it really gave us the confidence to maybe approach each other, talk to each other and all this sort of stuff. And it's what made the event so great. And honestly, I feel like you're doing a great job in your mentoring.
Thank you.
You should 100% carry it on, man. 100%. And I wanted you to tell me, we spoke about this at the event, but the way you got your role, and I feel like what you told me as well would be very inspiring to the people. So tell us about the way you got your role.
Okay, so with how I got my job at Heathrow, so I'm currently right now the service recovery manager at Heathrow, and this is a story of how I got my job. I joined Heathrow a long time ago, about 2 years ago now, 2022, which you mentioned earlier. and I was just doing a normal entry job. And, you know, I had the bug. I loved the industry. I just wanted I wanted to be there. I wanted to make an impact, essentially. I just wanted to make an impact. Yeah. And I remember there was all these events. I used to sign up. One of the events was called the Heathrow Midnight Marathon. And this was an event where they, at night time, when, you know, the runways are closed off, you get to go onto the runway and you get to just run the length of the runway. Yeah. Really, really cool. Really cool. And a lot of my colleagues were not as keen. They kind of looked at me and was like, you know, why would you waste your time? Boring.
Cold.
Yeah, yeah. It was a very difficult environment where, as someone that really wanted to achieve something, really wanted to really grow and learn and do all these things, not a lot of people were open to that, and a lot of people like shoot me down, if I'm honest. But nonetheless, it's like one of the only things in life, especially back then, that I did by myself. But I was like, I'm not passing on the opportunity. I need to go. So I went. Good stuff, great fun. I, you know, ran the length for the runway, met like 1 or 2 people. Nice. End of story. So then I went and kept doing other stuff. I got promoted and I got a job in the identity management officer, which we mentioned before. And there I applied to the grad schemes at Heathrow because I said, why not? I'll give it a shot. I applied, I made it through to the last stage. And before the last stage, there was a meet and greet. And I remember I went to the meet and greet and I saw this guy and he looked familiar. I can recognize his face from the profile picture from one of the emails I received, and he was the team captain for the actual marathon itself. I remember I went up to him and said something that I should have never said, and it was extremely creepy. But I went up to him and I said, hey, by the way, I know you, but you don't know me. Which never say that ever, no matter if it's professional or personal. Don't say that. He found it funny, and we got talking. And I mentioned that, you know, I recognize you. You were in the marathon thing. You were my team captain. He's like, oh yeah. And then he asked me like, what's going on? What are you doing? And I applied for the grad scheme. Great little conversation we had there. Went into the last stage for the grad scheme. Got rejected. I was heartbroken. I was so upset. But to my knowledge, it turns out when you do these grad schemes, afterwards, they all get into a room and they talk about the candidates, talk about especially the internal ones, which I was. Okay, what is his strengths and what are his weaknesses? And little did I know that he was actually one of the assessors. So he was in that room and he was hearing my strength and my weaknesses. And up to this point, he's built like he's done this marathon thing. And then he came up and he introduced myself to him. Now I know his strengths and weaknesses. And at this point, of course, I was heartbroken. I was distraught. I was so upset. But he now knew that I was really, really good at an operational job, a service-related job. And then he just happened to be the service recovery manager. And it turns out that I think a month or so after that, he just happened to be hiring. And I knew him a little bit. He now had an understanding of who I was. Well, I didn't know that, but he knew that what I was good at and what I was bad at before I even stepped into that interview. So I applied, and little did I know, I got the job. And a part of me is because, you know, I planted that seed a long, long time back, and I just let it 100%. Blossom and grow. And this person got to know who I was a long time before he's even thought about he's going to make this job posting. And that's what I really, really tell my students, that you just don't know who you're gonna meet. Yeah. Like 100%. I would have never ever thought, like a year ago, 2 years, whenever that was, that this one guy who was the team captain for this marathon would not only be my manager, but then he would leave 6 months later. I will apply for his job and I will replace him. Yeah. Never in my life would I thought that this one person will have such a domino effect on so many other things. So definitely, you just don't know who you meet in life. 100%. You 100% never know who you meet in life. Always, you know, no matter who it is, always show your best face. Always, you know, go with it with really, like, you know, with a good attitude, charisma, you know. Don't underestimate anyone. 100%.
And I think the main thing that you can take out of that is, after rejection, good things can come out of a rejection.
100%.
Things that you might not even know. Like you never knew he knew your strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly.
But it's really, you could say that rejection got you that service recovery role.
Being rejected from that graduate scheme was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because if I didn't get rejected, so when I got rejected by it, a couple months later, I got a job at the level of where the graduate scheme would be. And then 6 months after that, I managed to get a job above that. And then, I can't remember the timeline specifically, but essentially, if I was successful, I would have waited until September to start.
Yeah.
By the time it was November, I already got the job that the graduate scheme sets you up for.
Yeah.
So being rejected by that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I remember I always wanted to be on the graduate scheme. You get to do some really cool things to the graduate scheme. So you know how I went around that?
Yeah.
I would volunteer and say, you know what, I want to show the graduates around. And guess what? Because I'm showing the graduate around, I'm doing the exact same cool, really sick things that the graduates will do just by volunteering.
Yeah.
And I just got to do the things that I would have done on the graduate scheme just by asking. I was like, can I do that as well? Yeah, sure, why not? Why not? So yeah.
That's amazing. I think that's a great thing that if people are inspiring engineers and just applying to whether that be roles, apprenticeships, universities, anything, rejection is not the end of all, and
really
good
is.
things come out of that rejection.
It's good that we talk about this, because you know, I've had a career where I've gotten jobs very, very quickly. But what we haven't discussed yet in this podcast is the jobs that I didn't get. And I applied to the Heathrow graduate scheme, but I also applied to like 6 other graduate schemes. And graduate schemes take a lot of time. And alongside that, I was applying for jobs internally. Throughout, up until I got probably the manager job, probably the job before that, at all times I had at least like 2 jobs there. And I was like applying. And you can imagine if that's the case, just the sheer amount that I got rejected by, it was
100%.
You get used to it eventually. You get desensitized, and eventually you're like, oh, okay, sure, I'll get the right one eventually. And that's the mentality you have to get yourself
100%.
in.
100%. Tell me a bit about the importance of teamwork in the aviation industry, and just in your role, or just overall witnessing other people's roles and everything like that.
Teamwork.
100%.
Teamwork is everything in the industry, honestly. You think about Heathrow Airport is Heathrow Airport, but in actuality, there's so many different suppliers that work with us, 89 different airlines which all run independently within themselves. So we have to work with all 89 of them. Then their check-in staff might be for Menzies, they might be Donata. Their baggage handlers, they might be Donata, they might be this company, they might be that company. Their catering, again, that's a separate company. You think about Heathrow Airport and you think it's just one entity, but actually it's so much, there's so much happening inside, and so many different departments and so many different teams and so many different people that are just constantly working together every single day. And I think that's really, really important to demonstrate, not only to demonstrate in like an interview and an application that, you know, you can demonstrate teamwork, but show an understanding that it's really important because of what I just said about an airport is not just an airport. An airport is all these airlines working together, all these baggage handlers working together, all of these check-in staff, so on and so forth. Because there's so many. If I was to sit here and list all of the different companies that we have, I'll be here a long time. So it's important that for each one of these companies, show an understanding that you're not just working for that company, you're going to be working with loads of different baggage handlers and airlines and all sorts of things.
100%. What's one lesson that you have learned in your journey that you would like to pass on to others?
One lesson.
One advice, lesson, anything that you would like to pass on to.
This is the best piece of advice I've ever received. This is a life hack. Best piece of advice I've ever received in my whole life, whole career. And it's this, right? When you do an interview, let's say we're in an interview right now and you say to me, oh, what's your motivation for the job? Let's just say you say that. life hack, yeah. You just say to them, thank you for your question. It's a great question. I would just like to take a couple of moments to really reflect on the best answer to give you. And I've done loads of interviews. I'm now at a position where I conduct interviews for other people, even for grad schemes. And I tell you now, you can tell straight away when someone is just essentially just speaking without having put any thought into it. And that's one of the worst things you can do, because there's no structure, there's no clarity. It's really difficult for them to understand what you really want to say. And the contrast to that is saying what I just said, saying, actually, I want to take a couple of moments, I want to really think about this and give you a good answer. And I know a lot of people, a lot of my students and mentees would say, oh, wouldn't they think that I'm delaying, or I'm trying to avoid it? Trust me, it's the ones that do that. For me specifically, when I know they do that, I know that they care. I know that they're really taking the time and they're respecting the fact that they want to take this interview seriously. If you just go there and you just blurt out whatever comes to your mind, you're not really taking this seriously. But if you sit there and you command the room and you say, okay, I'm not going to rush this. I'm going to think about this, and I'm going to make sure that this answer is good because I care about this job and I want this job. Immediately, like psychologically or body language, whatever you want to call it, the interviewer will be like, okay, this guy is owning the room, he's commanding the room, he's in the moment, and he wants to answer this question the best he can. And number one, that just shows like your great confidence. But number two, it actually allows you to think about the question that you're going to answer. And trust me, when you just rush it compared to when you give yourself some time to think, the contrast is crazy. It's crazy. You need to allow yourself that time to really reflect on the answer you're going to give. And I know it's difficult at the start. It was for me, but you got to practice it. You got to practice it and just talking to someone and just practice, just holding the silence. It's difficult, but once you get used to it and once you get comfortable, your interviews are going to be much easier. I
feel like in this podcast, the interview tips that you have given have been really good, extremely good, and I'm sure there will be one person listening who's got an interview coming up and they're going to use your skills. And
I hope they do.
This one's a bit of a reflective question. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
It's a great question. For myself personally, I'm not a person that likes to look too far ahead into the future. And I'm a person that likes to live in the present most of the time. Like I remember when I first entered Heathrow and I got my first job at Heathrow, just working at a train station, I didn't think to myself, you know what, in 2-3 years, I'm going to be a service recovery manager. I didn't even know what service recovery manager was back then. But I knew I wanted to make an impact. I knew I wanted to make a difference. I knew I wanted to be in a position where I can really impact like the airport, just in general. And thankfully, I'm in that position now. And I'm able to, really change how we deal with complaints, how we interact with passengers, how we really improve the passenger experience. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I think thinking like that again, what I would like to do, I think the mentoring is something I'm really passionate about. The mentoring is something that I've found that I really enjoy. They're motivating, they're inspiring. I done it a bit this year, but I've really got the bug. And next year, I just want to multiply it. I want to go to as many universities as I can, as many colleges that I can, really help, really motivate, and just keep doing it. And see where that takes me. In terms of Heathrow, I love my job at Heathrow, and I wanted to make an impact, and I'm now in a job where I am making an impact, and I'm really making a difference in how the airport operates, how the airport serves its passengers, and that's exactly what I wanted. Who knows, maybe down the lines I might want a slightly different job. For example, maybe something I'm also passionate about is, equality, diversity, and inclusion. So maybe if something comes up in there, I'd love to try and, improve how diverse we are as a company, or something in the people team and training, really change how we train our staff, how we motivate our staff. But then I don't know what's on the horizon, but I would love to do something like that.
That's really cool. So I know you said you had 5 questions, but for like the teamwork one, my next question you answered in the previous one.
Okay.
So we just skipped it. So if you have any questions for me, then we can go for it.
I do have
Go on,
questions
go on,
for you.
go
I do
on.
have questions for you. My question is, what really inspired you to start this podcast?
Good question. Very good question. Firstly, the whole thing came out is when I went to British Airways event. I went to Waterside, and over there they made us. Some apprentices were talking, and after the event, there was a pilot there who was gonna fly to Singapore in 5 hours. And after the event, everyone went around. Everyone went to him, and he just sat in the middle, and everyone asked him questions, and he was just stories for a good 30 minutes. He just had stories, and honestly, that 30 minutes was so informative, so good, that I just felt like so many people in the aviation industry like yourself have so much wisdom, so much things that they can share, but they don't have that platform to share it to anyone. Obviously you have your TikTok and everything like that, and there's platforms there, but the more the merrier, the more the platforms the better. And one of the reasons I do it, you've basically said it, stuff like the interview tips that you're giving, stuff like advice that you're giving. That's the reason I started this podcast. So first of all, it helps me out as a young person aiming to go far in the aviation industry, yourself, a young person aiming to go far in the industry, and people living at home. And it also helps not only the young people, but the already established individuals in the industry. It helps them realize what potentially there might be someone who's in charge of a team listening, and it helps them realize what really the youth need, the youth wants, and how they're thinking, and it can help them adapt, whether that be their company or how they go to work for. And yeah, it's just, and connections as well. I just want to meet as many people in the aviation industry as possible. And yeah, that's basically it.
There's a great way to do it. A very good way to do it.
Anything else?
I would ask, so my question to you, as you know, a student at university studying engineering, what impact do you want to make in the industry, in the aviation industry, or the engineering industry as well?
Very good question. The impact which I've always thought of myself to make, it will be both in the aviation and the engineering industry, in the sense that when I at that event, the airlines event, when Mo was on stage talking, and he said how like, was it 60% of people don't know any careers in aviation. The impact I want to have is just, even if it's 1%, just lower that number. That's the impact that I want to have within the aviation industry with this podcast. And engineering, it's just the impact I want to have is, especially if you're an aerospace engineer, you're creating these planes and all this, just making a plane and just seeing it fly. I think one day when I get to see that, then you realize that plane has helped a son go back home after studying abroad and see their family. That plane has helped people in the military come back to their families. And for me, it's that mindset. And I know there's different types of aviation, there's defense and aviation. And I'm just hoping to have an impact in that sort of thing. And I'm sure you similarly, with your amazing, like a lot of mentoring things, that's the impact you want to have as well. And I think the more people that have that impact, the better for the aviation industry.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. What does your dream job in the industry look like for you?
Dream job. I would say my dream job doesn't specifically have to be one day I want to work at Heathrow. I think just working at Heathrow, and I spoke to you about this at the event, but seeing like that, like you said, that airport just has this vibe to it. And as a young kid, I've always loved traveling, always loved the airport trips and everything like that. And you mentioned, I spoke to you about this as well, just being on the runway when the sun is rising and just seeing the sunrise on the runway, and it's just that view, and then just having that airport vibe with it as well. And my dream job would be just what you're doing as well, that impact that you're making within airports, and especially like that. And eventually aviation companies as well. I know there's major companies out there which one day hopefully I work with, and my dream job in the aviation industry would be to have that impact, to help young individuals aspire to be in the aviation industry, to help industry veterans who are handling young inspirational people, to allow them to know better how to hire the young people, how to be more, how to like reach out to them, all that sort of stuff. Just that's it, and that's the dream impact hopefully, and we're working towards that.
Absolutely amazing. Last question.
Go on.
Let's say someone that wants to enter the aviation industry, perhaps they're quite young, they really want to find their first step, like university or what they would like to study. What advice would you be able to give them?
My advice would be to look out for the opportunities. I remember I was on my bed laying down when on Mo's Instagram that competition came up for that 5, and I think one advice would be the opportunities aren't going to come to you. You've got to go grasp them. Follow the aviation industry. In the aviation industry, follow those creators. Go on websites, do your research. Like both of us got inspired by that British Airways thing. They do a lot of that, and I think with British Airways as well, they're starting up their Speedbird program for pilots in February. So that's something, if people want to get into that, look out for those opportunities. And even for me, like I want to meet all these people in the aviation industry, and the way I'm doing that is just, for example, entering that competition. You got to get out of your comfort zone. Do things that you got to be a bit extroverted in that sense. You mentioned how you were extroverted and you went up to that person who was with you in that runway run, and then he was the person sitting down. You the courage that you took. You may have been creepy, but that courage that you took to go up to them and be like, hello, all that sort of stuff. I
don't know what possessed me to do that.
I feel like it worked out. It worked out, and I think that's what people should take out of that it worked out. And I don't think people should be scared, because with that Mo thing, I really think that Mo thing and got Mo competition that he held, and being able to go to the airlines where I met all these other people, I think that really motivated me, and that was something anyone could do. That was something, we had someone in year 12 in Brampton Manor doing it. We had someone who's a doctor, who's a pilot there as well. So it's something that anyone can really do. So reach out, look at these opportunities, get on LinkedIn, connect with the people. Don't be scared to message them. Mo, the airport guy, he told me at the event when the people are in the panel sitting there, and I was on my phone and I was on LinkedIn looking at them. And I was a bit hesitant to click connect, and he was like to me, click connect and send a message. And this advice, I feel like you got to go out there and get him.
Absolutely.
Miguel, thank you very much for your time. And I know you're a very busy man. Anyone who, my bag's there, one sec.
Okay. Oh.
I'm hoping allergies aren't an issue.
No, it's gone.
But no one comes to the podcast empty-handed.
Oh,
so these are for you for taking time out of your day, and it's like a trophy, man of the match, taking time out of your day.
Thank you, man.
Really appreciate him, and I'm really excited to see when this episode comes out.
So am I.
Because you've made some really good points.
Thank you.
So that's it, guys. That's been AeroCast. I want to thank once again Miguel for taking time out of his day. I'll leave his socials, I'll leave his LinkedIn and everything like that on the screen here or on the link below. Make sure to follow him because he makes some great aviation videos, and don't be scared to reach out to him as well. If you have any questions, reach out to him. He's a lovely guy, as you saw. He won't be creepy, I promise you. He won't be creepy. But you might want to message him saying, you don't know me, but I know you. You can message him that though. But again, I want to thank Time Out, and thank you very much. I'll see you guys in your order. Don't go changing.
Thank you.
That's it. That's it.